In little reported news, Donald Trump may have changed his position about Armando Abrego Garcia and him being in the jail in El Salvador. He may have changed his position and is engaged in diplomatic discussions to get him out, despite everybody outside of the courtroom in the Trump administration saying that the guy's going to rot in jail, and that includes from President Bukele in El Salvador. But buried in a recent discovery response that he was required to make, the Trump administration, we see that maybe, just maybe, the worm is turned. And it's based on a ruling last week by Judge Wilkinson and the rest of the Fourth Circuit, in which Wilkinson, who's a rock-rib Republican, an arch-conservative, a icon of the Federalist Society movement, did a stinging rebuke of the Trump administration and did in unsparing words. And as a result, at the beginning, we thought here, well, he just gave the answer to Wilkinson about whether he's going to comply with the rule of law, because they posted that sixth grade markup of the New York Times headline, about MS-13 and Abrego Garcia is never coming back. We thought, oh, well, there's the answer for Wilkinson. He's not going to comply with the rule of law. But now, in something they had to file and something they had to provide to the other side, they say that they've changed their approach and are engaged in diplomatic discussions to try to get Abrego Garcia back. That is a 180-degree change. I'm going to break it down for you right here on the MeidasTouch network. So, how'd we get here? Abrego Garcia gets illegally seized, lawlessly seized, effectively kidnapped, and sent a month ago to El Salvador over an order of a federal immigration judge that he should not ever be and can never be removed to El Salvador. The government already admitted that they knew about the order and they did it anyway. And since then, Judge Zinnes in Maryland, supported by a 9-0 decision by the United States Supreme Court, supported by two different Fourth Circuit Courts of Appeal panels, 3-0 each. So you can add it up. It's 15-0 supporting Judge Zinnes. They all said she was right. Her order that the Trump administration must take steps to facilitate the release from custody in El Salvador and the return to America of Abrego Garcia is valid, is constitutional, is appropriate under our due process and Fifth Amendment considerations. Period. Now, the government, the Department of Justice, and Donald Trump have been squirming to avoid that ever since. They've put up, all these kind of theatrical moments in the Oval Office when he's not beating up, wartime presidents like Zelensky in the public. He's bringing in a whole crowd of people. It's like 30 clowns inside of a clown car inside the Oval Office with President Bukele, and they do this pitch and catch, this scripted thing with Trump. Remember a week or so ago? Oh, I would never release him. I would never smuggle a terrorist into the United States. And Trump's like, ha, 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 we should send you U.S. citizens and all this other BS. Then Senator Van Hollen on the timeline goes to El Salvador, and after 2 days is able to meet with Abrego Garcia, who curiously gets now removed from SCOTUS, the killer jail maximum security prison of El Salvador, and gets sent to something, I guess, slightly better. And I thought that was interesting. Is the worm starting to turn here? Are they getting him out of there to sort of encourage some sort of diplomatic thing? So that comes out. And then Wilkinson writes his masterful decision here for the Fourth Circuit affirming Judge Zinnes's rulings off a Trump administration appeal. And I'll go over it in a minute. And I thought, if anybody can get through the Trump administration, it's got to be Wilkinson. He's not a lefty. He's not an activist. In fact, he's written numerous books and articles about the role of judicial humility. Don't be an activist when you're a judge. He's not a Democrat. He is the most dyed-in-the-wool Republican around. If you were chiseling Mount Rushmore of federal judges who are Republican, he'd be up on it. So to come from him was powerful. Although the initial knee-jerk response was that sophomoric juvenile food fight where they put up the, to go after Van Hollen, like, you're never getting him back, and we edited this for you. Blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, that's their response to Wilkinson? But not so fast. Not so fast. So let me read to you what Wilkinson said, and then let me read to you what showed up yesterday in a new filing in Judge Zinnes's courtroom. This is what Wilkinson said. I'll give you the highlights. It is difficult in some cases, the judge said on page 2, to get to the very heart of the matter. But in this case, it's not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. Further, it claims in essence that because it has rid itself of custody, that there's nothing that can be done. This should be shocking not only to judges, Judge Wilkinson wrote, but to the intuitive sense of liberty that Americans far removed from the courthouses still hold dear. The government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident in its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings by preponderance of the evidence. Moreover, the government has conceded that Abrego Garcia was wrongfully or mistakenly deported. Why then should it not make what was wrong right? At the end, this is the final punch for Judge Wilkinson. It is, as we have noted, the judge concluded, all too possible to see in this case an incipient crisis, but it may present an opportunity as well. We yet cling to the hope that it is not naive to believe our good brethren in the executive branch perceive the rule of law as vital to the American ethos. This case presents their unique chance to vindicate that value and to summon the best that is within us while there is still time. Well, let's fast forward to to the responses that the government made to the Abrego Garcia lawyers that have now been filed in the court. And listen to this one. This shows you maybe, just maybe, they thought they need to step back from the precipice, that they thought that they have gone too far, that they've counted the numbers in the Trump administration and they're outnumbered at the Supreme Court, and they don't want to lose the Supreme Court for future rulings, and they have pushed this too far and we're on thin ice. Here's what they wrote. Subject, this is on page 3 of their response to interrogatories, which are questions under oath. Subject to and without waiving the foregoing objections, defendants respond as follows. Before the Fourth Circuit's decision of April 17th, that's what I just read you, clarifying its understanding of facilitate, the word facilitate the removal from the jail in El Salvador. The United States took the position that the only steps needed to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia involved removing domestic barriers. See, their position was, well, we don't have to make any phone calls. We don't have to assert any diplomatic authority. We don't have to ask Bukele to release him. All we have to do is sort of it's like that motel commercial, leave the light on. If Abrego Garcia does a prison break and he gets out of that jail and he shows up at a port or an airport, we'll let him in. And then we'll promptly deport him to another country not named El Salvador. That's not what the Supreme Court ruled. Supreme Court ruled you are to do all things to facilitate his removal from an El Salvadoran prison and brought back to the United States, given the due process he would have gotten had he not been illegally deported. Period. Here's what they say now. Thanks, Fourth Circuit, for clarifying our misunderstanding. After the Fourth Circuit's clarification, that's Judge Wilkinson's powerful ruling, the State Department has engaged in appropriate diplomatic discussions with El Salvador regarding Abrego Garcia. However, we can't disclose it because it would negatively impact any outcome. This is quite a sea change for the Trump administration. I don't want to belabor the point, but this is big. Because remember, a week or so ago, they basically told the judge to go legal AF herself and told her, no, we're not going to, there's diplomatic things going on, but we can't tell you. And we're meeting with the president of El Salvador is meeting with the president, last Monday or whatever in the White House. And we can't tell you about it, but we'll get back to you. And all they did in the White House, scripted by Stephen Miller, who's really running the show on domestic issues and immigration for the White House, and Pam Bondi, the whole thing was a chuckle fest about a man's life as he hangs in the balance. His liberty hangs in the balance. Well, I would never release him. I would never ask you to release him. Let's get a drink. I mean, that was the show. And we were like, oh, okay, so that's what Drew Ensign meant in his filing for the Department of Justice. Sit back, Judge. Let us use our diplomacy. That's the diplomacy? But now the Fourth Circuit's ruling shook them to their bones, as they say, right? Because this is not the Trump administration that I knew a week ago, which was F. Abrego Garcia. Let's try, and I'll tell you what else is not successful, and they've learned it in the polling, is them going after, from the bully pulpit, Abrego Garcia, his wife and children. That's not going over well either. So they tried this PR campaign to turn public sentiment against Abrego Garcia and his wife and children. Oh, there was domestic violence in his marriage. Oh, he's definitely MS-13 because he's wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey. And some disgraced cop got it from an unnamed confidential informant, which completely misidentified who the guy was. And that's why we think he's MS-13. So that didn't work, right? They trotted that out. They tried that for a week of sustained artillery against the family. Didn't really move the needle in public opinion, because the new polling that also just came out right around the time of this new disclosure about, we're working on it, Judge, to where we got diplomatic channels open. The polling is also showing that Donald Trump is getting rocked in the public. Not only has the midterms now are in doubt for the Republicans, because the Democrats now have a 5-point polling lead about, who do you want to run the Congress? Democrats, not Republicans. And that's all because of Trump and his policies. But even now on immigration, people are saying if Donald Trump doesn't obey the Supreme Court and federal courts, he should be impeached and removed. 58% of the people say that in a new CNN poll. That also rocked the world of Donald Trump, right? Because he's a TV watcher. He's a cable news watcher. He's a poll watcher. When he's in the middle of his golf games, that's what he's doing. So of course he's going to be moved by these things. And somebody, I don't know who, they'll write a memoir one day, sat this guy down and said this Wilkinson thing that came out of the Fourth Circuit, combined with the polling, combined with we're not being very effective with tearing down the family, ain't working. Change your position, make the phone call. And now they've disclosed, buried, it wasn't even in a public filing. It only got into the public because the other side had to file it when the government wasn't playing in good faith in their discovery obligations, and to move to compel in front of the judge, they had to show her the examples. That's the only reason we got our hands on this. Otherwise, we would never have known of that change. It's very important. I wanted to focus on it. I didn't want it lost in another hot take. I wanted it here for you to understand. That's what we do here on MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. While you're here, we got a channel that runs side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the MeidasTouch Network. It's called Legal AF. I curate the channel in collaboration with it. I do it with the brothers, of course, and it is at Legal AF MTN. Help us with our subscriber drive. We're trying to get to 1 million before our 1 year anniversary. We're adding 60, 70,000 subscribers approximately a month. Be that next subscriber. You'll get reminders. We're doing 12 videos a day. And at that subscriber base, frankly, to be candid, it's helping me bring on new and amazing different voices onto the channel as contributors. And that's all because of you, and I really do appreciate it. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.